the one, the only, Ben Sion. Okay, good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Just Daf It. Today we're doing Maseches Nazir Daf Nun Daled, number 54. We got 10 blot left in Maseches Nazir. We're completing it not this week, but hopefully next week. We'll start on the bottom of Nun Gimel and Beis 53b. We had a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish yesterday about the Mishnah. The earlier Mishnah on Daf Mem Tet talked about if you have a piece of a flesh of a dead person or a limb severed from a living person that does not have a kazayas of basar, does not have an olive's amount of flesh. However, if it were on the person or the person was alive, it would regenerate and make a kazayas. Is that considered something which Nazir is megalayach? He has to shave his head for and restart his count again. According to Rabbi Yochanan, no. I mean, it sounds like the Mishnah is pretty clear, like Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish says, yes, you would. So the Gemara is going to talk about this machlokes now. We're about 10 lines from the bottom, 8, 9 lines from the bottom. Hechi dami. Sorry, the 10 lines from the bottom. Hi, Aver min ames, hechi dami. The Aver min ames that they were talking about, a limb from a dead person. What are we talking about? What about the bone? Is there a bone the size of a barley seed? So if there's a bone the size of a barley seed, my time with the Rabbi Yochanan. What's the reason Rabbi Yochanan? Forget about the fact that flesh is not going to regenerate to make a gazayas basar, but you have the bone. The bone is enough to matame. The lace bad some kasor, my time with Reish Lakish. According to Reish Lakish, what it doesn't make any sense, right? There's not a kazayas basar. There's not a esem kasor. There's not enough of a bone. There's not enough of the flesh, and it's not going to regenerate. I'm like Reish Lakish. The whole lace bad some kasor really is talking about, like I said, there's no bone the size of a barley seed. Nonetheless, it's a brisa. We're going to see the Torah actually included it, even if it's not going to regenerate to make a kazayas. The pasuk continues and says, this is a pasuk in Parshas Paro, we read a couple weeks ago, not this week, last week, I think. The pasuk continues and says, talks about all the things which make a person tummy for 7 days. You have to sprinkle the water on him on the 3rd and 7th day. The Sanya, right? What does that mean? Right? Pnei Asad is an interesting language on the face of the field that it teaches you about Tumas Oal, right? That you make a roof, even though there's no roof on top of the corpse and you're underneath the roof. You actually yourself made the roof. You walked on top of a corpse. It makes you tummy. The Chalal is a Aver min achai. Chalal is a dead person, but obviously we're talking about a dead person. So Chalal is here interpreted to mean Aver min achai. It's dead, that it's not severed from a live person, dead because it's not attached to them. However, it has enough to regenerate to make a gazayas basar. Cherev, that teaches me, cherev teaches me that when you have a sword, something metal, according to most poskim, it has to be metal, touching a corpse, right? The corpse itself becomes like the mace itself. If you touch the sword or the piece of metal that touched the mace, it's like you're touching the dead person himself. That the dead person aviyavosa tuma, you become an avatuma if you touch the cherev. Oh, the mace is a mace. The mace, again, we know we're talking about dead people. Why did it say open mace? Let's talk about a limb that is severed from a dead person, which also does not have enough to regenerate to make a gazayas. Oh, etzem adam, why does it say that? Zarova atzamos, talking about a fourth of a kav atzamos. That's enough to matame. And we learned previously, it's only matame for Nazir, it's not significant. However, if you would touch it, it would be significant. In terms of Oel, right? Rov Atzamos, it has to be a Rov Atzamos, a fourth of Atzamos, and if you touch it, right, you become Tameh. And for Oel, you need Chasi Kav. We learned in the previous mission. Oh, Bekever is a Kever Sasam. It says Bekever. Kever means, is that Kever Sasam? Means a completely enclosed grave. Most people are buried, at least in America and outside of Israel, they're buried in coffins. Kever Sasam basically means that if a person is buried in an enclosed grave, so let's continue the Gemara Nun Galam and Aleph. The Amar Amar, Tuma Bokas V'Ola Bokas, you read this. There's a common refrain that's said by Tumas in Maseches Olos that if a coffin, right, if a person's in a coffin, a dead person's in a coffin. There's a tefach space between him and the top of the coffin. So the tuma is enclosed in that coffin, which makes the whole coffin like it's filled with the dead person, like the dead person touching all the walls. The entire airspace in the coffin is tummy. However, presumably, according to at least Rashi over here, we're going to explain it according to Rashi, the Mafarish over here, that would not be a case of Bokasva Ola Bokasva. It wouldn't go extend indefinitely all the way down to the bottom of the earth and all the way up to the skies, to space, right? However, Kever Sasim is talking about a case where there's no tefach. He's in an enclosed coffin, and between the top of the dead person and the top of the coffin is less than a tefach. That's Kever Sasim. I'm explaining it according to the Mafarish, not according to the way the article explained it. Tosos and Rush. I'll talk more about this machlokas between Rashi or the Mafarish and Tosos and the Rush and Ian with Ben Sion. It's a very important halacha, especially for Kohanim who fly over graves. There's a lot of flight patterns that they're not allowed to fly on because the flights fly. If you're a Kohen, you're not allowed to fly over a grave. And it can't become tamei with a corpse tumah. And it's bokasva ola because you're right. It goes all the way up to the sky, all the way up to space. So even when you're in an airplane, you can become tamei potentially. So according to Rashi, and this makes the most sense in the Gemara because it goes with the next phrase in the Gemara on Nun Dalam and Aleph, we're talking about a keres sasim. There's less than a tefach between the mace and the top of the coffin, and therefore, since think about it, it's like if you compress something and there's no airspace over there, it just breaks out. It breaks through the top of the coffin, breaks through the earth, breaks through anything, any oil on top of it, and does not interpose, and it would shoot up into the sky. It's an interesting halacha l'moshe we have by corpse tumah. We'll talk more about the in Metzion. Vilo gami negia, when it comes to negia, top nandal manal, Amar of Yehuda Tanya, mechal nogea be'etzem mechal be'etzem ze'etzem kasaora. This is a pasuk two psukim later in Parshas Paro also. It talks about things which come in contact with a dead person or something that contacted a dead person. Be'etzem ze'etzem kasaora. That's talking about the barley seed of, a bone the size of a barley seed. Bechal ze'ever hanechal menachai. Ve'ein bo la'alos arucha. It's talking about a limb which is cut off from a living person and doesn't have enough to regenerate to make a kazayas basar. That's talking about, again, a case where a person died and then you cut off a limb and there's no meat, and there's no flesh, not enough flesh to regenerate to make a kazayas of flesh. What does the word obikever come to teach you? Let's talk about kever shalifnei adibur, because before Matan Torah, Jews and non-Jews were the same, and there's no tumas oel. Tumas oel that we've talked about so many times by a corpse tumah. That's a special halacha l'mishvasina which only applies by Jews after Matan Torah. Non-Jews, machlokas or Shimon and the Rabbanon, we paskin, it does not apply. Tumas oelim does not apply to non-Jew. Non-Jews do not. They do if you touch them or carry them, they would mimatame you, but they don't have corpse tumah through an oel. And before Matan Torah, the same applied to Jews. So that's what the Kever teaches me, that there's no tumas olim lifnei adibur, and also to non-Jews even after Matan Torah. So the Gemara says, "Hay ever mina meis hechidami." Right. Again, this is another further proof to Reish Lakish. We're going to see. Ever mina meis hechidami. What's the case in this brisa? It is be'etzem k'sa'ora hainu ge'eh be'etzem. Right. The brisa talked about etzem the size of a barley seed. So it can't be talking about that it has a bone in this piece of this limb of the person, which is the size of a barley seed. El delays be'etzem k'sa'ora. Must be talking about as less than a bone the size of a barley seed. Avilo haka rachman rabye. Nonetheless, the Torah includes it. The Torah says that it transmits tumah like a corpse, even though it's cut off from a dead person or a live person, and it does not have enough to regenerate. Right? This brisa seems to support Reish Lakish. How's Rabbi Yochanan going to answer this? I'm going to Rabbi Yochanan. Really, it's talking about, right, if it would not have enough to regenerate, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it wouldn't be matam. It must be talking about there is a size of a bone. There is a bone the size of a barley seed. Why do you have to teach me twice that? Right? The word etzem teaches you that if you touch a bone the size of a barley seed, but I still don't know that if you carry, right, a bone the size of a barley seed in your backpack or something like that, how do you know that's matam? You didn't touch it. That's the second limud is teaching you. Eber min hameis is talking about where it's cut off from the dead person. It's not matami you because of the flesh. It's matami you because of the bone is because of the carrying it. So this is the end of the Mishnah. We had Daf Memtet. So the Gemara says, right? You have to sprinkle water on the third and seventh day if you come in contact with these things, and then until you become tor. So what does it mean actually become tor? Does that mean b'shvi kai ad avid herav shemesh? Right? You become tor. And when do you start counting your Nazirus? Do you start counting on the seventh day or on the eighth day when you bring your karbanos? We learned previously as Magalos, Rabbi Lezer, and the Rabbanon, right? Does it mean to talk about shvi kai the avid herav shemesh? Once he does shkias achama comes, Mani Rabbi Lezer, he right. Tara means, what does Tara mean? Tara means once he right on the seventh day he goes to the mikvah, he does herav shemesh, and he shaves his head. Right, the korbanos brought on the eighth day, but Tara according to Rabbi Lezer, it's already on the seventh day. That's the first day for your Naziris. The eighth day is the second day for your new counting. Dilma Shmini Kai, maybe Achiyitar is talking, it doesn't say which day it is. It's the eighth day. My Achiyitar, actually have a Kabbalah says, but you have to bring your Kabbalah. It's my Rabbani, it's Rabbana, and Mishnah follows Rabbana. Tashma, let's bring a proof. Tani Sefer Maskal Mona Miyad, right? We're going to see in the next Mishnah, a couple of lines from now, it says when it's not such a severe tumah that makes him restart his counting. So it says he begins right away. Haresha, my Achiyitar, Achiyav Kabbalah. Right, because we're going to learn in the next Mishnah the certain things which make him tummy for 7 days, and then you start counting miyad already on the 7th day. It must be in the first Mishnah, Daf Memtet. You have to wait till the 8th day. Mon miyad haresha my achi yitar achi yar karbonos must be until the 8th day when you bring karbonos. My Rabbani the Armin is just the Tara shmini lechayla. The Rabbanan no, we learned previously. The Rabbanan argue in Rabbi Lezer and say that. When you have to go and start your Naziris again, you have to wait for the 8th day to start counting again. The Mishnah says, "Aval haschachos va'paros beis hapras ve'eretz amim agol va'dofek revias dam ol rova tzamos v'kelim anogim v'meis u'v'meis sifra megamra al elu eina nazir megaleach u'mazav shishu v'shvi." Let's go back for a second. Let's just finish the Mishnah. Ve'eno nandal beis ve'eno soser as hakod mil maskal mona miyad ve'korban einlo. So there's a long phrase I just read. Let's slow it down for a second. This Mishnah is really the end of the previous Mishnah. The first half of the Mishnah talked about the certain things that a Nazir has to shave his head. He has to bring karbanos, and he has to start counting his years again. There are certain types of tumos that make a Nazir really count 7 days of Tara, but he doesn't have to shave his head. He doesn't have to bring new karbanos. What are those? Schachos and pros. Schachos refers to, and pros are really similar things. They're talking about, schachos is talking about where you walk in a public domain, and you have tree branches overhanging you, and the tree branches are a tefach wide. Under some of the branches, we know there's a dead person. We don't know under which branch, or we know under which branch, but we're not sure if you went under that branch. And pros talking about when you have a wall made out of stones, and you have stones overhanging on the top of the wall that are leaning over, and again, they're a tefach wide. And there's two other corpse under one of them. We don't know which one you went, or we don't know which one if you went under that corpse. So it's a suffix tumor sharabim. Even though tumor sharabim, the Gemara says every place we go lahakel. Tumor sharabim we go lahak. Suffix tumor sharabim we go lahakel. Only Rishon Yachid Ramachmer learn Masechah Sota. Nonetheless, midrabanan they're machmir. Beis hapras. You have to count 7 days of Torah. Beis hapras. Ve'eretz amen. Beis hapras is talking about where you have a field that was used as a cemetery, and they basically exhumed all the corpses, or they just plowed over. They made it a construction site. They plowed the entire field, and they started building buildings over there. And you went over that land. Now, there were a lot of bulldozers that took the bones of the bodies out. So you don't know if there's an etzem kasaora over there. Again, it's a suffix, which is a rabbim, you're machmir. Rabbanan, you're machmir. Eretz Amim, if you go out of Eretz Yisrael, Rabbanan, they impose tumah. We'll talk about that type of tumah in the Gemara exactly. Was it a concern that there's always corpses around outside of Eretz Yisrael, or is it something else? Gol and Dofek, there's two different explanations. A famous machlokas, people learn Masechus Ksuvos, it comes up in Masechus Ksuvos and Abdalid. Gol and Dofek, according to Rashi, in Masechus Ksuvos, means basically the top of the coffin and the walls of the coffin. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it actually means the tombstone, the tombstone which is above the ground, and sometimes you have a tombstone lying on a stone lying across, and then you have something sticking up where you could read words on. So It's above ground according to Rabbeinu Tam. We'll talk about how it's related to Kever Sasam that I mentioned before. Tuma Ola Okas, Ola Okas Yoredis. A very interesting Iyot Ben Sion share to talk about this. Revius Dam, Revius Dam, Ve'ol. Revius Dam is talking about, right? We said before you need a Chatzi Log Dam, in order to be Megaleach, to shave your head. Revius Dam is not sufficient. However, Revius Dam elsewhere in the Torah makes you tummy. It's just not sufficient enough. We talked about it's more severe. In order to start counting, as you need double. The Oel Rova Atzamos, a fourth of Atzamos does not, right? Even though we mentioned previously in the Gemara that if you do touch a fourth of Kav Atzamos, you do have to be Megalech. In regards to the Oel, in terms of coming under the same roof as Rova Atzamos, then it would not be, Nazir would not be Moleach unless it's a Chatzi Kav Atzamos. So Kalim Anogim and Mace, the simple explanation, I'm not going to spend like our school over here. Kalim Anogim and Mace is things which are not metal Kalim. Let's say you have Kalim made out of wood or pottery that touch a dead person. So those are not Cherev. Cherev is a metal sword. That becomes like the Chalal. That becomes the Aviyavas Tum. When you touch it, you become an Avatuma. However, an earthenware Keli touches a dead person, it becomes an Avatuma. When you touch it, it becomes a Rishon Latuma. A Rishon Latuma is not sufficient grounds to Megaleach. You're not even tummy for 7 days, only for 1 day. We made Sifro, we made Gmoro. We made Sifro, we made Gmoro. We're talking about a Metzora, we mentioned before that it has to be corpse tuma. So if a Metzora, someone gets saras, it's a form of tuma when you get saras. There's 3 stages in your purification process, or in terms of the tuma, right? When you have questionable signs of saras, so the Kohen will put you in isolation for 7 days. Then if he finds out that you for sure have saras, then he will, it's called Svira Mesafro. You have to count. Make Gomro. Then he confines you. That's good. We learn Mesachas Megillah, Masora Muskar, a Muchlat. He's called a Muchlat. It's decided he has Saras, and he has to wait a certain 7 days until the lesion goes down, whatever the signs of Saras go down. And then there's a 3rd stage, even after the lesions have gone down, then he cuts his hair, he brings some birds, and he sprinkles the blood on himself. And then you have to count another 7 days and get a second haircut and bring more karbonos. So Mei Sifro are those 7 days of counting. Mei Gemaro are the Muchla, the 7 days you're isolated for sure. Aleilu ain't a Nazir Megaleach. He's not Megaleach on those things. However, Umaz B'Shlishi V'Shvi, right? He does have to become purified on the 3rd and 7th day, and therefore it's not Ve'eno Sosir Zakodmim. Umaskil Lamona Miyad, if a korban ain't low. It does not, even though these tumas are tamei elsewhere in the Torah, for a Nazir, it does not make him start his count again. On top of Nundal and Bez. You start counting right away once you're purified after 7 days. You can't count in the middle of if you're tummy midoraisa, you can't count those 7 days. But it does not make you start again. You just, when you're done purifying yourself, you pick up where you left off. A korban ain't low. There's no korban. Nazir megaleach, and he brings korban. There's no korban. He's not in shave. He doesn't bring korbanos. Be'emes amru. You may have zav, you may have skerosh from the Torah. They even said furthermore, that too much of a zav and a zav is a male who sees in a mission. A zava is a woman who sees, also she sees blood when it's not her. You may need that. Even though technically a zav gadol and a zav gadol for 3 days they saw missions, it would make them tamei midaraisa for 7 days. We may have skero shal mitzora. Also, the 7 days where the Masorah is locked up in isolation, when we're unsure if he has the right simanim to declare him for short tamei. Harei elu olna. Those days, not only do they not dismantle his count, but also they actually count. He continues counting his aziras during those days of tuma. That's halacha Moshe Sinai. The Gemara says, what is schachos in the Mishnah? Ilan hamesach al aretz. Like I explained, it's talking about a tree overhanging Rosh Hashanah. And again, we're not sure if he went underneath the branch, which was which was on top of the corpse. So pro, it's like Yosef Me'aged, they're talking about rocks that are protruding on top of a fence, and we're not sure if he went under the one with corpse tomb underneath it. But Eretz Ha'amim, you go to Chutz La'aretz, you go outside of Eretz Ha'amim. Eretz Ha'amim mishum avir gazrol. That actually we said that you become tamei if you go to Chutz La'aretz. Was that just the Rabbanan didn't want you to leave Eretz Yisrael? So they said you're tamei. Not that there was any basis, they were concerned there's unmarked corpses all over Chutz La'aretz. It's just Xera. They don't want you to leave Eretz Yisrael. So he said that. It's not because of Tuma. Or is it because of the ground, meaning there might actually be corpses. In Eretz Yisrael, people are more careful to mark the corpses, to mark the graves. And Chutz La'aretz, we don't know. So therefore, there are gozer, there are bonan. It's just a rabbin, but nonetheless, there are bonan, there are gozer. Tashma Omaza b'shlishi v'shvi. It says in the Mishnah, on the third and seventh day, he has to sprinkle the mei par on himself. If he'll say that the reason there were gozer in Eretz Amim is not because of Tuma at all. It's just they didn't want to. It's a chumrah. They didn't want to leave Eretz Yisrael. So why do you need hazah? There's no concern at all for graves. El la mishum gusha. It must be there's actually a concern of graves. Lo the olam emalach mishum avira. Really, I'll tell you, it's nothing to do with graves. When it said that you have to sprinkle the mechatas on the third and seventh day, that's all about the other case of the Mishnah, not that case. The Gemara says it makes sense to say that. When not even kalim and nogim makes. One of the cases in the Mishnah are utensils which touch a dead person. Hani kalim b'nei hazayinon. These kalim, right? Do they have to undergo sprinkling also? Right? If you touch them, also you don't have to go under sprinkling because only a metal kli. It's talking about all kalim, right? Only a metal kalim, but earthenware or wooden kalim are not like an actual dead person. So therefore, if you touch them, right, the kalim themselves actually do, but the kalim because they become an avatuma. But the person who touches the kalim, he's a rishon l'tuma. You only have to keep one day out, and then you go to the mikvah. Shramina ashara. So you see, at least there's another example where lav dafka you have to not exactly you have to do third and seventh day of Tara. Similarly, also when it comes to tumas eretz ha'amin, when it comes to going to chutz la'aretz, that's also only really you don't have to sprinkle on the third and seventh day. You just have to wait one day and then start counting again. That's the conclusion of today's shir. Tomorrow we'll continue talking about this machlokas of chutz la'aretz is a mishum the avira or mishum gusha. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion. We talk about this halacha Moshe Messina tuma, unique tuma of a corpse. Bokas all the bokas yoredas. Very interesting machlokas how you learn that Gemara, and also it relates to the Mishnah over here about golul of a dofek. There's two explanations, main explanation what golul and dofek are, and it's brought up in the beginning of Seches Ksuvos over there between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. I think the machlokas Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam in Seches Ksuvos is exactly related to the machlokas Rashi and Tosos and how to understand our Gemara about tumas bakas for all of Yoredas, and it really has many nafkaminas, especially for Kohanim flying over graves, cemeteries that have Jewish people. Non-Jewish people we generally hold are not metame ba'awal, but Jewish people are metame ba'awal. But what does it mean tumas bakas for all of bakas Yoredas? Machlokas Rashi and Tosos is not so simple that it's a problem. We'll stay tuned. Ilan Ben Sion coming up next.